Hello everyone and welcome back to Do You Even CSGO, the fast-paced tip series that somehow still isn't fast enough for some of you micro-attention span wankers over on Reddit. This week we're going in-depth on the HE grenade, so let's crack on. Coming in at a price of $300 on both teams and with a blast radius of 384 units, the HE is your classic first-person shooter grenade. You pull the pin, throw it in the general direction of the bad guys, and wait for it to go bang. The HE is probably the most awkward grenade in CSGO simply because so many players have absolutely no idea what to do with it once they've bought it. As a result, I can't count the number of times I've witnessed pointless nade throws that often deal no damage whatsoever and achieve nothing more than getting the guy who threw the grenade killed. I know I've been guilty of this in the past and I'm sure you have too, so let's put aside our embarrassment for a second and do a little self-improvement. The first thing you need to know about HE nades is that they do a hell of a lot more damage against unarmored opponents than those with Kevlar vests, and as such they're a pretty legit investment when you know the other team is on an eco round. On maps like Dust 2, Cache, Cobblestone, or actually pretty much any map now that I think about it, where eco rushes towards B are fairly common, CTs might want to consider lobbing a cheeky nade as soon as they hear those footsteps thundering in. On maps where CT aggression is common, you might want to do the same as terrorists. Furthermore, the grenade itself does a sliver of damage if you can get a direct hit on your target, 1 HP with Kevlar and 2 without. This means that theoretically, if you can get a direct hit on an unarmored enemy, followed by max explosion damage, you can actually kill them outright with the grenade alone. Having said that, when it came to recording the clips for this episode, it turned out it was way more difficult in practice to do this than we had previously realized. Helmets make no difference to the damage inflicted. Even when the other team isn't on an eco, it can still be a good idea to throw nades at the start of the round to push back early aggression in certain spots. A great example of this is the classic Guardian AWP pick on Overpass, which can easily be countered if the terrorists throw a nade there most rounds. A flashbang would also work for 2/3 of the price, but you might want to save that flash for later in the round. I suppose I'll leave that one up to you. The HE isn't just a defensive measure against aggression though, it can also be an offensive weapon in the right contexts. As we've established, it's pretty unlikely that you'll kill someone with a single nade, so they're usually used to soften up enemies, making them play more cautiously and easier to finish off with rifles. On the other hand, you could opt for a particularly entertaining strategy that some teams have been known to employ, which is buying 5 HE nades on save rounds, 1 on each player, usually with the aim of throwing all of them in one place, getting 1 or 2 kills and thereby gaining an advantage and salvaging some better weapons. In theory, this can work on either side, but unsurprisingly, it seldom yields results. Still, Anders is a big fan of this strat, so at the very least, you'll be making the general happy. A few more things. The smoke and dust kicked up by the explosion of the HE can be used to very briefly obscure opponents' vision, so it kinda works like a very short-lived smoke grenade. Back in 2014, the Danish team Dignitas were the first to make decent use of this technique, occasionally using HEs to help them safely cross mid-doors on Dust 2. Finally, the grenade's explosion can destroy certain doors and vents, creating openings for rushes or new angles. The thing to remember here is that you don't want to go blowing up doors willy-nilly, as you may regret giving the enemy a nice big opening to see you through later in the round. As with everything in CS, there are pros and cons to weigh up. The explosion also affects weapons and equipment that have been dropped in the surrounding area, so you might be able to use a nade to blast a gun or a defuse kit towards you, which very occasionally will be the difference between winning or losing a round and guarantees you a spot on the front page of Reddit. So there you have it, everything you should ever need to know about the HE. Tune in next week when we'll be finishing off this grenades mini-series with the Molotov/Incendiary, and if you have any suggestions or questions, please, as always, do scribble away in the comments below. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you on the next one.